Mr. Seymour, pardon me, is still refusing, by hook or by crook, to acknowledge that there is any research and positive vibes behind school lunches.
David Seymour says hundreds of millions of dollars could be slashed from the government-funded school lunch programs.
Let me just say this, and I'm not going to stop the loss this time. He's saying hundreds of millions could be slashed. Yesterday they were saying there's $25 million wastage. So why isn't he saying today $25 million could be saved? Because if it's about wastage, how are they going to save hundreds of millions of dollars unless they just get rid of all of it, saying 350 million is what they currently spend, and that they say their numbers there was 25 million lost. So where is the hundreds of millions come from? Yes, Joey.
You're not thinking long term, Pat.
Okay.
Like if we cull the poor, then it's the long term savings.
Ah, all right. We'll keep going. Yeah. I'll do my best not to interrupt.
He's a good thinker.
Interrupt this too much.
Saying there's no proof it's improving achievement or attendance.
Labor disagrees and has launched a campaign to save them. But as Laura Tupou reports, new research shows the benefits come in different forms.
Break time at Dannyverk High School and it is loud. That's because there's no phones in this wharekai, this dining hall. So
That's pretty cool, eh? Put your phones in your bags, come and eat lunch, sit down and talk with your schoolmates. I think that's pretty cool.
Communication is old school, connecting with classmates and teachers over pumpkin soup today. And in the kitchen, they're flat tack, feeding not only these students, but 2 other smaller schools as well.
We're basically doing about 500 meals every day.
This is one of the schools providing free lunches funded by the government. It costs about $350 million a year across the country. Principal Di Carter says it's money well spent.
Everybody comes in and then we at least know that they've been fed, happy, they can work better, and those are the benefits, and they do come to school.
I reckon we're learning heaps more now that we've got full stomachs.
Well, the research we talked about yesterday was clear. Hungry kids on average are 2 to 4 years behind academically than anybody else. So remember, we said this last night, Seymour and his ilk want to see NCEA returns, outcomes improve whilst having hungrier children at school, which will help them go backwards. So this is the government we're dealing with. This is them.
But the programs come under fire. Associate Education Minister David Seymour is proposing to slash it.
The job of the Education Department is kids going to school, learning lots, and the lunch program hasn't actually helped with those things.
But
the other thing I realised about this, Chewy, is that they're looking on some level at a tangible outcome where there's going to be some intangible benefits. So, for example, under this government, and we said this lots last election, before the election, under this government talking about outcomes, and there being a vibe of running the country like a government. We're not, running the country like a business. We're not a business. And the example I always gave was, if you were a business, immediately you get rid of all the libraries. There's no return there on the libraries. I kind of feel like school lunches is a little bit like libraries. What is the tangible response that you can measure from people being able to get books out? I don't think, I would struggle to think what a tangible result would be. There is research about this, but it's talking about the good feeling of the community, the goodwill. But one of the ways Seymour, we talked last night about how he's trying to negate research. Another thing he's doing is he's saying, I've not seen the kind of research that I need to see. So all that other research, that can go away, but I need to see numbers with decimal points. I haven't seen that, so it's not working. You want to say anything before we keep going?
Yeah. So for someone that obviously thinks he's smart as fuck, this man can't think further ahead than 3 years. If we're talking about a program that is going to keep kids fed and agree with the research that said kids that are not hungry learn better, the thing should be 10, 15, 20 years down the track that we have better achievement. We have people that are better educated, able to get better jobs, pull themselves out of a cycle of poverty and deprivation. It should improve, but none of these programs are given far enough runway to prove themselves, because somehow thinking that what is it, $300 million a year?
$350
million a year. Are there not other things? that you can get savings from? Why are we, or is there not more tax take that you can get to fund it? Because we're taking away from children.
Yeah, tax cuts.
Taking away from kids.
Everything they're doing is to pay for their tax cuts. And now, this is why I started talking about they're at superhero villain levels. They are literally pulling the food out of hungry children's mouths to give it to wealthy landlords. That's where we've got to. And that's why Seymour refuses any of the research that negates his position. If it's inconvenient, he won't use it. It's what I said earlier. They'll use the experts when they need to. When the experts are counter to their position, they ignore them and they say there's no such thing. And he's doing it again. Yep, go.
Politically, like if I just shaved my head, polished it up, put on a blue suit,
yep,
and got kicked in the head by a horse and suddenly became right wing.
Yeah.
Like I could justify this. Say you came in, you go, fuck, we can't pay for anything that we promised. Shit. Nicola calculator ran out of batteries. I don't know. Why wouldn't you just say, hey, look, the Labour government has left our finances in such a fucking state that we are going to have to defer tax cuts. Yeah. We're going to fall on the sword. We're going to blame Labour and we're just going to status quo it and just see what we can do next budget. But no. They have chosen what they want to entrench themselves in on. With all of these cuts, with all of these, woe is me, we can't afford these programs anymore. Tax cuts from landlords has never been mentioned once as something that they would review. Not once.
Yeah, it is interesting when kind of everything's on the table, because they kind of say there everything's being looked at. We're looking at every entitlement there, but they haven't said, you're right, at any stage they haven't said. And we'll also look at the the promises we made, which maybe we can't fulfill. So it's just where we're stuck. I'm just looking through right now on Wikipedia for my favorite Status Quo song, because when you said it's the Status Quo, I thought, yeah, they were a good band from the 80s. All right, let's keep going.
Labour's former Education Minister Jan Tinetti says that's not the advice she received.
There's evidence to show that there's a positive impact on attendance, but every single one of them, every single one shows that there's a positive impact on well-being for young people.
And again, the frontline people, the people at the school, have we heard from a single one who said, thank God we're getting rid of these school lunches? The people on the front line. Remember how important the front line, the front office for this government has been, not going to be impacted. The people on the front line, not a single one has come out saying, yeah, this will be fine. Every single one of them we've heard of has gone, oh, this is really good. It helps our community. It helps our students. We know it does. We can see it. And it would be really bad to take it away. So those front office people, all of a sudden, again, when it's inconvenient, Chewy, they ignore them.
Yeah. We love anecdotes, right? This government loves anecdotes. Here's an anecdote for you. At one of the schools here in New Zealand, in Dunedin, that has lower socioeconomic role, they get the free lunches and that sort of thing. At the end of the day, there are kids taking home food to their families.
Mm.
Now, if this is the way that the government's going, so you're going to say maybe they don't have a house, maybe they live in a car, maybe that kid's still going to school because the truant officer will come chuck him in an orphanage or something.
But maybe because he gets a meal. Maybe he gets a meal. That's why he goes to school.
Yep, and maybe at the end of the day, he's taking meals home to his family. Maybe he's the provider. Now that's still grim. The idea of a kid that is providing the meal for the rest of the family. But I would still rather that than a world where that kid isn't able to provide food for their family, or he goes to school on shit food or no food.
Yeah. All right, we're going to keep tracking.
Researchers at Massey University did their own homework and also found evidence that kids formed better relationships and improved so-called soft skills like self-management and relating well with others.
We know it's largely intangible impact, but it's about the well-being of our children for learning. And the complexity around achievement is there are so many variables that play into that.
Di Carter says no one from the previous or current government has visited her school, and she's extending the invitation to see what could be on the chopping block.
I believe that we would lose our attendance stats, that students would not come to school.
Front office, expert.
Could not afford to feed those students under the wages that they get at the moment.
Food for thought for the decision makers in Wellington. Laura Tupou.
So one other thing to tell you is that the Associate Professor, the researcher there from Massey University, Bevan Erueti, is how I'll pronounce it, is with us tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. So he'll be talking to us about this tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. I've talked a lot through that conversation. I don't know if I've got anything to add right now. Cherry, do you want to add anything else before we move on to the final?
I love the term that those soft skills of relating to others and that sort of thing as being an intangible. I tell you what, you might say it's an intangible now, but you certainly wouldn't say it's intangible if it's missing from your society. Yep. Like if you've got a cohort of young adults coming through that don't know how to do those things.
Yep.
You would certainly mention it. Now I'm going to highlight. Don't come at me, Pat. I'm going to highlight a chat from one of our most left-leaning regular watchers. Okay, and I'm just going to say yes, comrade. I completely agree. Why don't supermarkets spend some of that surplus to support school lunches? Fucking yes. Maybe that's something that should be mandated. That would be some social good. And in the past, like we've seen organizations like Fonterra, milk in schools and that sort of thing. It's good for the public image. It's good for the tax write-off and that sort of thing. I don't care what their fringe reasons for doing it is. If it results in kids eating well at school, then I am all for it. The other thing that I want to point out is, again, the stereotypes that are around these, the parents, these mooching scumbags, these welfare queens, and all of this, all the bad. Remember, we're coming off a time of record high employment and record low unemployment. That idea of the welfare queen or just really just shitty parents with kids, that's such a minimal group. We have working poor.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned this the other day. Before tax, a full-time minimum wage earner, like a cleaner or someone that works in a fast food restaurant or a warehouse somewhere, makes $47,000 before tax. Now, that parent could be working as hard as they can. They can be pulling all the extra shifts and just being a really diligent worker, and they care for their kids. But their landlords get in their rent take, their market rent that their property manager says, hey, look, you're under the market rent for this area. You should charge more. Everything could be going right. But someone there is still missing out, whether it is the mum or the dad that is the worker, that they're skipping meals so their kid can eat. Or maybe it's a point of like nobody really eats a proper nutritious meal because we've got rent to pay or we've got power to sort or firewood to get. We're just all going to have to do it tough.